This chapter of my chess base DVD will be called Rolling Pawns. Why rolling pawns? Well, rolling pawns in the middle game. I will have 4 games in this chapter, which are designed to give you the ideas about how do you sacrifice a piece in the middle game in order to create rolling pawns. And somehow I think that all 4 games they can give you an idea, give you an inspiration, which can translate into ideas which you may get in your own middle games. So if piece is sometimes attacked, it doesn't need to be defended. It could be sometimes sacrificed. Per definition, in all my examples, you don't get 3 pawns for a piece, because if you get 3 pawns for a piece, okay, it's kind of easy, everybody understands that. We are going to deal when you get less, when you get 2 pawns, or maybe sometimes even 1. I will start this chapter with the old classic of Garry Kasparov, which he played in a pre-computer era. He played a friendly match with Jan Timman, who was at that time one of the best players in the world. In 1985 in the Netherlands, Kasparov won match with 3 wins, 1 loss, and 2 draws. So let's see how the game go. Queen's Indian, Knight c3. Kasparov was at that time playing a lot so-called Petrosian variation, and he was very successful with this. Obviously, Garry probably was not in a mood to somehow enter this way, because he didn't like at that particular moment Bishop a6, though he did allow it in some other games, and he was also doing it very well. His score at that time with White was fantastic in this Petrosian variation. So Timman chose from Bishop b4. Now game is between Queen's Indian and Nimzo. Bishop g5. Obviously, compared to regular Leningrad variation of Nimzo Indian, which can arise if you play, let's say, Knight c3, Bishop b4, Bishop g5, where Black has here already committed himself to playing move b6. So compared to those positions, you do not have various lines. For example, this queen can never come to a5, and also you do not have this gambit line, which has also been played by some players. So Bishop is now already developed to b4, but pawn is on b6. So we have different kind of play. Bishop g5, Bishop b7, e3. White wants to develop harmoniously. Like if you would castle, I would like to play with Bishop d3, castle myself, and due to this pin, this regular kind of play is not really easy to make work. Actually, you cannot make it work unless you want to push your kingside pawns. And this is exactly what Timman does. And if he wants to do it, he better does it with his king still on e8, when he can decide where he wants to go with his king. Okay, Queen c2. Bishop c3 makes sense, because in close positions, knight could be more useful than a bishop, and also, obviously, you don't want to be under tempi, and you do not want to give up a central control. So it's quite logical that he takes with his bishop, bishop takes, d6, bishop d3, d5, f5. Now look at this position, because it is very instructive. How does Kasparov play it? You may argue that White has 0 play, because Black is firmly controlling the center. Even took some space advantage on the king side. White has those double pawns. Not really clear if he can sacrifice it with c5. Possible. Doesn't look exactly like this is going to work, though it's possible move. For example, such a kind of sacrifice is typical in those kind of positions, with the idea if you take by pawn, that you give me a tempi for my rook, and if you take by another pawn, then you obviously give me a square for, let's say, my bishop, or even my knight. You normally don't do this. So what happens is that it is possible, but it is here not really played much and not exactly working. So how else can I kind of try to create something here as a... Because white needs to open up a position. White has two bishops. So Kasparov, he pushes d5. With the idea that if you take, I got a square for my knight. And position is going to open. When you move a queen, I can play, let's say, move like f3. You take, I take back. This pawn will fall. King is still in the middle of a board. My pieces are starting to work. It is starting to make sense. So what Timan did, he played move knight c5. With the idea that, okay, if you take, which looks like a rather logical move, there is some problem. I can, for example, take, you take back, and I can, let's say, play such a move. Takes, and now it is not exactly the way I would love it to be, because I can, for example, can I castle? Or maybe I don't castle. Maybe, let's say, in such a position, I can first take. Yeah, this is the way, and queen f6. This is the way, because I couldn't do what I wanted to, because here queen f6 is, I don't know, it's also possible I was afraid of this move. I couldn't really work out such a kind of complications. Actually, those kind of complications are good for me, because I can go back, and I'm very happy. Or maybe even do Zwischenzug. Also possible. But to take queen f6 is also good, because this bishop is now a wrong piece. So both ways it is working for black. Kasparov played here move h4 to provoke move g4. And once pawn is on g4, this bishop leaves better. Knight d4, queen f6, and castle. This was all played. And here Timan did something which looks extremely clever. He took on d3. In his later games, he will not like these resulting positions, and he would play move knight a6. Here. With the idea after knight e6 to take knight e6. And the point is that if you take by pawn, then I can protect on f5, and I would like to get my pawn back, because look, everything is kind of completely ruined. What should white do here? White should actually also apply rolling pawns strategy, taking bishop f5, knight g7, bishop check, and okay, we have a very messy position. White has pushing pawns, black has piece. You cannot, now we don't talk 3 pawns, we take only 2, because you cannot take, because then with rook f7 material will drop. So I need to make such a move. It has been played a lot in practice, even between Kasparov and Timan. That game was drawn, and a number of other games. Timan played it a lot, with I would say mixed results. But it is possible. This was his improvement after he lost this game. In this game he took with a clear idea, e5. Idea is of positional nature. An instructive idea. If knight e6, it doesn't cause any damage. If queen takes f5, I can take. And now actually I will attack the knight. When you play move e4, takes, and knight e7. There will be full compensation for sacrificed pawn. Why? Because knight is here stronger than this bishop, hitting on all these black pawns, this pawn chain, and also white pawns are weak. This is something which black would like to achieve. But Kasparov, he took knight f5, bishop c8. Obviously, black thought it doesn't matter, because now knight is hanging, and if you defend the knight, I will take. And again, a fantastic position. Black is actually better here because he will get his pawn back. And he's having a fantastic pawn structure. He can even castle queenside. So what else can white do here? Well, can you imagine what can you here do to sacrifice this piece and to get the pawns rolling? Kasparov here did at that time a brilliant concept. Because imagine that computers did not exist. He played move knight back to d4. With the idea, if you take, to take back, to have only two pawns for a piece, but e and f pawn we roll. If you put this to on modern engines, they want the same thing but improved. They want here move f4, which is actually probably the best move. And it kills the whole variation for black. Because if you take by bishop, comes e5. And bishop now needs to go somewhere. I don't even know where is this bishop supposed to go. And I will just take. And these pawns are simply going to roll. Pawns are simply now rolling. Let's say that you move queen. I have here various moves. Well, I can, let's say, take, which looks very logical. Tempo. You cannot castle. Rook f6 is coming. Knight is stupid. Everything is wrong. And if you take by queen, e4. And now where to go if queen g6? Okay, this looks very bad for black. Bishop is locked up. My queen will come to d4. If queen goes to h7, well, then the problem is that I can take this pawn. White has 3 pawns, central pawns, and black king is in the center. So actually f4 simply kills the variation. It is improved version of Kasparov plan. But Kasparov played move knight back to d4. And I like the strategic concept behind. Why? Because you can use a similar strategic concept. It is positional sacrifice. There is nothing forced here. Computer is even giving close to zeros or around zeros. But strategic concept of white is to give a piece in order to get his pawn chain running. And now let's see how game continues. A queen f5, which is probably not a strongest move. Timan wanted to force move e4. Why? Because he was afraid, let's say in the case of knight d7, let's suppose he wants to develop. Well, then f4, bishop a6, let's say push. And now simply those pawns will run. Or if not bishop a6, pawns will run. So that's why he wanted to provoke move e4, that you cannot push your f-pawn, because I have pawn on g4. However, castle was a better move. It would have on a tempo compared to the game. Because if I now push move f4, c5 is a strong move. You cannot push it so easily, because I would take. And you cannot take because my knight is on b8. I can still take with the knight back. So I will probably, e4 is the best move. After queen g6, we have a game situation with extra tempi. So Timan playing on queen f5, e4, queen g6, queen c3. Kasparov wants to push his pawn. Maybe queen a3 made sense. It's not so easy immediately to grasp why, but if we castle, play e5. I want to play e6 to lock up this bishop. To lock up this bishop, I simply want to push. Bishop f5, e6. now it's sort of clear why, because okay, this knight is now very stupid, cannot go anywhere, and okay, it is a problem how to develop. So queen a3 was possibility. Queen c3, castle. Rook fe1. Kasparov is saying that e5 immediately is also possible. Rook fe1. Knight e7. e5. For example, Kasparov says that he didn't want to play move e5 because of takes. Bishop f5, e6, knight a6. Well, now, for example, in this variation is apparent why queen a3 is maybe a better move, because now obviously if you would like to follow the same business, okay, you cannot follow it because you cannot get out with this knight because queen is on a3. So this is, for example, an explanation why move queen a3 can be here more precise. Okay, castles, rook fe1. Now knight develops, e5, bishop b7, rook e3. Difficult moment in a practical game, because let's say computer engines are playing move rook ae8, rook ae1, and they claim that perhaps it is difficult for white to make a progress, because indeed any time if I push you would have move knight f6. But black's position is very passive, and black king, of course, can be potential target. When humans are playing, as a human, you're looking for a counterplay. So it is difficult to blame Timan for here looking for a counter, and he pushed b5. Obviously, he wants to remove this pawn and make his bishop active piece. What can be problem? Well, Kasparov played a good move, queen a5. This is a problem. Problem is of tactical nature. Well, most of the problems are of tactical nature. He wants to take on b5 or on c7. For example, one line demonstrating black's problems, if he takes queen c7, e d4. Now, for example, rook e7 is not so obvious. Bishop c8, push, and queen g5. But precision is always needed when you attack. Rook e6, queen f5, now h5. Forcing queen to go to h5, because I threaten check. Or I threaten to take by queen, and I want then move rook g6. So takes, rook e7, bishop c8, queen b6, queen c6, knight b6, and now bishop e5, and there will be a checkmate. But also move queen b5, which is less complex, eliminating pawn and keeping the structure. And queen b5 was actually indicated in an original commentary of Kasparov, is good enough for white to have large advantage. So queen a5, knight b6, queen b5, queen c2. Okay, black is hitting the only target he has. Takes. What can be problem with the move queen c4? He wants to trade queens, and he wants to grab important pawn to open up a bishop. Any idea what can be here a problem? Why Tima didn't play it? The problem is attackers and defenders. King momentarily is without any defenders. Look, all these pieces alongside the board. How does white take advantage of it? He swings his queen to the king's side. And now the battle is decided. Check. Check is important, by the way, because rook e7 does not do the job because of queen takes d4. So queen g6 is the only winning move. And now check, check. And now, unfortunately, king is in a mating red, because no matter if you go to h8 or to g1, move rook e1 will follow with deadly entrance along the file and mate. So ed6, cd6, rook e7. Black king is a basic problem, and this pawn chain limiting the bishop. Rook f7. In general, a good idea to trade attacking piece, but you're also trading here the defending piece. c5. Rook e1 was also a good move. Now willing to play move c5 under better circumstances. And you still cannot play rook c8 because I push. You cannot take by rook because there is going to be mate. And taking by queen still runs into queen b1 ideas. So this is still happening in the game. Moment, if you queen c2, yeah, queen c2, then comes queen b4. You cannot stop me with queen c2 because queen b4. And now I have a deadly threat. I had threat and check, and I threat and check. And you cannot cover all this. It is simply not going to work. And if you take immediately, then even better. Again comes this queen swing, because pay attention that king is alone, 0 defenders, and those 2 pieces are sleeping. It is quite possible that Kasparov missed that in this position actually queen b4 is a winning move, because you cannot cover the multiple threats. And obviously you cannot touch this knight to take anything because, well, bishop is hanging. Kasparov pushed c5, which is also winning because he still has queen b1, but of course I would love to have it in my rook on e1 already. Queen d5, check. Check. Now white is collecting a lot of pawns. Plenty of pawns. King f7 is losing because takes. And just f3. Because the problem is that you obviously cannot take, because check will happen. King must move. And if I do not find anything better in this position, I can even... No, I have something better. I can give a check. King must move, yes. I take, yeah, I got it. Take. Forced, and bishop g5. And now bishop is hanging, and the knight is hanging. I will get my piece back, and I'm going to remain 3 pawns up. So it is winning. So queen g4, Timan with king h7. And now actually the similar kind of bridge which I suggested now just in this analysis. Bishop goes to g5 to bridge versus any kind of threats. Bishop c8. This move doesn't help because I threaten mate. And now, okay, black has survived mate, but this ending is just lost. He's pawn down for nothing, and the weak king. He played move bishop c8, queen g3, dc5. And now how to win this position? How do we normally win? Well, put the remaining piece in a play. Another attacker comes, crushing black, rook e1, queen f7, queen d5. Queen g5, sorry, knight d5. Looks like black has covered everything. How does white improve here? Well, by one of the non-attacking teams, which is called a rook lift. So first check, and rook to e5. Threatening mate. Black resigned because after move bishop f5, they will cov move queen g5. And he will lose his extra piece, so he will be 3 pawns down, and he will be under a mating attack. I loved very much this game when I have seen it, because you have to pay attention. In 1985, we did not have computers. And I was maybe, 17. And looking at this game, it left a huge impression on me somehow. Just giving a piece back. Just giving a piece in order to get potential of a rolling pawns. And then the domination those pawns were creating. And the difficulty which Steeman had later in the game, when he got into, look, when computer is blinking in front of your eyes, giving you here like +2 or more, +2 I think is evaluation, it is easy. But when you are calculating this, it is not so simple to understand that there is always going to be, until the end of the game, problem as to why this pawn cannot be taken and this bishop finally get into play. Finally. It never happened. And somehow the timing and strategic idea behind, I think, makes this game, and the time when the game was played, makes this game very impressive.